Hi there, if you're joining me for my rock and pop sax video where I was about to break down the Born to Run solo and you decided to come do it by ear, good on you. Solo is going to come up very shortly. I just wanted to say that if you're coming to this fresh and you just happen to click onto this video prior to my first one, if you don't know the techniques to growl, scoop and fall, and you don't know your pentatonic scales, I would strongly recommend you go check out my other video where I talk about these techniques in depth, just so that you can have a good starting point for when you're learning this solo by ear. Now, I'd just like to preface learning the solo by pointing out that although we're going to be learning this solo by ear for this video, that there's nothing wrong with learning things through sheet music. Certainly, there are different advantages to both, such as learning how to sight read on sheet music and training your ear to a higher level when learning by ear. However, just because I'm showing you how to learn it by ear does not mean I have anything against sheet music. I do believe that if we are learning this solo by ear, you will learn it more accurately because your brain is going to hear the intricacies a little bit more clearly and will force you to hear them while you're learning the notes, and it will translate a little easier. Now, you can still do this by learning on sheet music by actively listening while playing on the sheet music. It just may come at a slightly different pace or may not be as accurate. Alright, it's time to get to the fun part. Actually learning the Born to Run solo. Now, I already told you earlier in the video that I'm going to be teaching this to you by ear. So in other words, I'm going to be giving you tips and tricks on how to learn this solo on your own without me necessarily giving you the notes. This may be difficult at first if it's new to you, and if it's not new to you, this may help give you some tricks that you may not have had prior. Without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to do this phrase by phrase. Let's start with the first little bit. Alright, so first off, we're going to have to figure out what that first note is. Now, I told you that the song is in F sharp for tenor sax, or E concert, or C sharp for alto. Knowing that, play your root note. So that would be your F sharp. From there, try and hear the interval. Ba, 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 ba. It sounds a little like Star Wars. Ba, 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 ba. That's a trick. Now, if you notice that sounds a little like Star Wars, the interval there is a perfect fifth. Now, if you don't understand what an interval over a perfect fifth is, that's okay. That doesn't mean you can't figure this out by ear. I'm just giving this trick for those that do know that and maybe have a slightly more theoretical background. So, if you're just trying to figure this out, I told you that you're using your pentatonic scale. So from your root, you can go up and down and try and figure out what note sounds closest. So if I just start going through the pentatonic scale, doesn't sound like a G sharp. We're getting closer, but still not quite there. Sounds like we have a winner there. So now you have your starting note, which is your C sharp. So I've given you two notes of reference right now. You have your F sharp and your C sharp. So, knowing that, let's listen to that first phrase one more time. So it sounds like we're returning to that note each time we move. First we move down, we return to the note, we move up, and we return to the note again. Knowing that, try and figure out where it's going when it goes down and when it goes up. If I continue, so from the beginning and continuing on. We're returning to that first idea. Ba 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 ba. If you're able to figure it out the first time, you know it's just a copy and paste from your first little phrase. Now, we have that little run down. Now I'll give you a hint. If you recognize that ending note, It's because it's one of the notes we were using to figure out these different notes. It's your root. This is your little cheat right now. I've given you another note. Now that you know that that's your F sharp, try and figure out what notes could have come between your starting note and your F sharp, since you know you go down to your F sharp. After going down to our F sharp, we return to that same first idea. So again, if you figured it out already, you just copy and paste it there. Following, we're going up again. Again, we're returning to a note that should sound a little familiar if we were going up and we figured out something in that first phrase. Now, from that first phrase, we're just returning back and forth to that note. If I continue. Now that top note I just played, you might notice we're getting a little high in the tenor saxophone range. Now, if you notice, it sounds very similar again to our root. And again, I'm giving a little tip and trick here, but it's our root just an octave higher. So from there, you can figure out where you're going. You're going down to your starting note and back up. So you just have to figure out what's in between your F sharp and your starting note. And considering we're using a pentatonic scale, that should come pretty quickly. If we continue, you'll notice we're playing around on that F sharp and playing a similar phrase. We've heard that before in this song, so try and figure out where else you've heard that and try and copy and paste it. Now from there, from our starting note, we're starting one note lower. So again, I'm giving you a little trick here. I'm telling you that your starting note for this descending phrase is A sharp. Try and figure out what the contour of this phrase is. We're going down a couple notes and back up. Down a couple notes, back up. Figure out where those notes fall. How much are you going down by? How much are you going up by? Try and hear those differences. Now if we continue. You'll notice we're starting on that note that we just ended on. So if you know what note that is, you have a good starting point. We're doing a very similar motion to what we did going down, just in reverse. We're going down one and up two. Dee do do da, dee do do da. And we're returning back down and up. So you get this one down, two up, one down, two up. And again, you just have to figure out what those intervals are, what notes you're going to for this. Once you get to the top of this pattern, you're going to notice that there's a note that is not in your pentatonic scale. You have now, you know that that top note is your root. Before that root, we're getting a note that isn't in our pentatonic scale, but it is in our major scale. So, we know that the note that's missing is the 7th degree of our major scale. So, you're essentially adding an F or E sharp before you play your F sharp. So, now although I mentioned that the pentatonic scale is what's characteristic of the style, borrowing notes from other scales is also perfectly normal for rock and pop, and quite frankly, any style of music you're playing. Now that we know that, you know that you're working up to your high F sharp, and you're holding that note out. And then, we return down to our 7th, and go back up. Again, adding that little bit of tension right before the solo ends. So, now I'm going to play it once, slowly, with all the inflections and the growl, and then I will play it once, up-tempo, with all the inflections in the growl. If you're having trouble hearing where all these growls and inflections are when I do it slow, that's okay. I'm gonna link again to my video where I basically just tell you what all the notes are and I go into all of these intricacies very in depth, just so that you can hear them as clearly as possible. This way you'll also be able to check the notes if you were doing this all by ear. Now, one last time with all the inflections and the growl.